You're listening to Studio One. I'm Lucius Pham here with Jeff Roalson and Trevor Polk, two members of the Iowa City band Halfloves. So, how does it feel a decade of Halfloves, the album, and Halfloves, the band?
It feels simultaneously like it was yesterday, but also a long time ago, which is kind of how a lot of life feels, I think, for me. But we've never really stopped doing music. So, in that sense, it's just been a fluid thing. So, a lot of the past stuff we've done, including that first record, seem pretty recent, but admittedly, any band in the area, I think 10 years ago, like the whole Iowa City music scene was really different 10 years ago. So it's definitely easy to feel pretty old once you're in Iowa City and you've done anything for 10 years.
I guess similar feeling. Still feel very connected to where it was 10 years ago. Still feel like we've made tremendous amount of growth and are completely different 10 years later. I think replaying the album that we've been rehearsing for the upcoming show, it's definitely cool. I think I had a lot more romanticism of the album at the time, the self-titled, because it's just so creative in a different way. I think there was a lot more. It's at the beginner's mind where there's not as many rules in place, and so it's very chaotic in a really cool way that I super appreciate. But I can also appreciate now the maturity of where we've grown from since. So yeah.
The Halfloves, the self-titled debut, which came out in 2016, 10 years almost to the date. Not just a great debut album, but very strong album. So I hope that's going to be a great show at Gabe's on the
Thank
6th.
you.
But it is an album worth celebrating, and I'd like to talk about some of the tracks on there. But do you guys have any favorites right off the bat? Maybe that still are in the sets that you've been performing at live shows, or just have a special place in your heart?
I'll give a shout out to Novocain. That's, I think, the first song we wrote for the album. And that one, we haven't played it at every single show, but probably 95% of the shows we've done over the past 10 plus years. And yeah, something about that one just has some magic to it that makes me feel both, like it still feels like a fresh song to play, but it's one of the oldest songs that we have in our catalog at this point.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And to the point I was making earlier about being chaotic in this kind of freeway, that one's the most like almost through form type song where there's like, I don't know, 5 different, parts. Most songs you get the classic pop structure, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. You might have a pre-chorus in between those two, but essentially it's either an extension of a bridge or a verse, or it's leading up to a chorus. But that one, it's just really a mishmash of different parts, and I really appreciate it. And yeah, being the key synthesizer guy, it's definitely got one of the synth parts that goes the hardest. So that one's cool.
I think there's a lot of levels to that song and Mirror Mirror, the track before it. You guys get maybe not experimental, but the paces change and you're getting weird. But yeah. I definitely Novocain is a standout. Do you just think you're better than Frank Ocean though, spelling it like you did? And
there's so many different ways. There's like an E at the end. There's Nova. We have obviously Novo. I think we might be one of the only ones that's Novocain like that. I don't even remember how we landed on the spelling. I think that's what we thought the actual spelling was. But there's like bunch of different songs, bunch of different ways to spell it. But yeah, definitely don't put ourselves above Frank Ocean. He's awesome.
The album kicks off with a 38-second refrain, like a prelude that you revisit later in Rounding the Bend 2. I'm wondering why such a space, a 7-song space between Rounding the Bend 1 and 2.
Yeah, so actually that was our previous drummer's idea, Noel Nissen, and he's on that record. He's awesome. Love Noel. And that was actually his idea. I think a lot of that came from the idea of having, some sort of cohesiveness, kind of, a book ending of sorts, even though it's not directly at the end. And just the idea of the lyric being rounding the bend, kind of almost insinuating that sort of circularness. But to be honest, I don't remember if this was explicitly said by him. I think it was, two things. First off, I think he was at the time, and we all really loved the record, "To Pimp a Butterfly" by Kendrick Lamar, and it had the I remember you was conflicted, and that kind of refrain going throughout. So I think it was influenced by that, and then also just the idea of having something surprising right off the bat from the record. You have that sort of start, and then it drops into key, almost, and not even on a metronome beat, just kind of it slips in. So I think we wanted something that just sort of surprised you and put you off your heels in a good way.
Yeah, no, that's a cool explanation. I didn't remember any of that either.
You mentioned Rounding the Bend 2. It was like kind of the end. It's at least the end of like normal things, because it gets really dark at Ghost Variations. I'm wondering how that came about, the experimentation process. Ghost Variations, a wordless, kind of spooky interlude just before the last song, Hex, and it sets it up really well. So why did you go dark with it at the end?
Well, I think in general with our music, we have this sort of bipolar nature of, very poppy, sunshiny sort of stuff. It's easy to love. No suspicion until the end of the outro, a little bit of no suspicion, or we have new songs, bass drum, etc. And then we've just got this great amount of darkness, heaviness, grittiness. We have a lot of us came from the mid thousands sort of hardcore emo pop punk sort of influences, so we've got a lot of that in there too, as well as Radiohead and even more cinematic type music that would be lends itself to showing the yang aspect of the yin aspect of the yang of life. And I don't remember that choice. There was actually a lot. I remember a producer was really pushing for like, oh, we should end on Rounding the Bend 2. We don't need Hex on the record. I'm sure others besides me, but we're like, that Hex is it has one of my favorite parts being that bridge that does the instrumental bit, and just that kind of energy and grittiness. It just seemed like we needed a little bit more of that. So Ghost Variations, couple things. I remember the recording process for the record took a really long time. Like it must have been over a year and a half or something, Jeff. Do you remember exactly?
I didn't think it was that long, but maybe 1 year. Maybe
1 year, yeah. But yeah, and we just like belabor a lot of different things. We work a lot more quicker now. I think our producer at the time was I remember actually his manager told him you need to work faster after that. I mean, it wasn't just our record, but other records. What was really nice about that is there's a lot more time for experimentation and just sort of random moments. Like, for instance, the little glitch sound at the beginning of Mirror Mirror was one of these kind of moments that happened because we had all these different sessions and just trying out things. And yeah, I think we were just experimenting with, it was the Prophet 12, I want to say, synthesizer, and found this really cool sound that was kind of eerie. And we just were like, hey, let's just lay down something. I think it was just me and Micah in the room, actually. And Micah threw on some sort of like kind of old timey found footage sort of thing to sort of like almost compose to in real time. And I remember at the time too, where Ghost Variations came from, because I would do a lot of like looking online, like, a band or some sort of work of art that I really like, and then you go on Wikipedia, and then you'd find, go down this Wikipedia rabbit trail and find something else. Eventually, I think from finding, looking up Pyramid Song by Radiohead, which will be, I'll repeat ad nauseum, but Pyramid Song, there was, it was inspired, like the lyrics, I float down the river, what I see, black-eyed angels swimming with me, and it may have been a connection to, I want to say it's Strauss. I can't remember what Schumann. It's some composer, but he had written some work, and the German or whatever, I can't remember what language, the translation for it was Ghost Variations, and it was a work that he made right before he died, drowning in water. So anyway, that was the kind of the backdrop to that sort of influence of the title. And yeah, I don't know if there was really a lot of analysis as much as like this sounds cool and tying together from Rounding the Bend to Hex, which is a very 180, having something that sets that up.
Yeah, graveyard walking music. Do you think Guillermo del Toro snoozed, fumbling that not putting that song on the score for the latest Frankenstein movie. I feel like it would have fit right here.
Right. Yeah.
Who are the producers on, I guess, both those records, but first, Halfloves?
Yeah, same producer and engineer. Brandon Darner is a producer, and Micah Natera is the engineer. So we've literally every song that Half Lives have done has been with those guys.
What's been the interim since Dazer been like up to now? You're working on an album now, but like before that, just kind of what was it
Yeah,
like in the off
yeah,
season?
yeah. Dazer was released in 2019. So we did a decent amount of touring and kind of playing shows on the heels of that album, and then obviously COVID hit in 2020. And so we were kind of just still meeting up when we could, doing some music, but everything slowed way down, like a lot of the world. And from 2020 for the next, like, honestly up through like the last year or year and a half or so, we kind of just didn't really intentionally pursue doing an album as much as just we kept writing songs and kind of were a little bit more loose with maybe some of the qualifiers or stylistic kind of um you know compatibility, those conversations about does this song like fit with us or with these other songs. We kind of just were really open with it, and we released some of those songs, probably like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 songs over those like 3 or 4 years. And it was fun. It's a fun process. We still play a lot of those songs live. And yeah, just about in this past year maybe, we kind of year and a half have more focused around trying to write songs more specifically for a third album. And still, it's, I feel like creating music and art, especially when it's not your main vocation, it's kind of something that, well, like we sort of talked about earlier off air, about just the extent to which you want to create deadlines and kind of push stuff versus just letting things come around a little bit more naturally and not kind of push it as much. So I think we've had a healthy amount of a little bit of pushing, a little bit of kind of just, hey, let's be proactive and work on this, get some stuff together. We've been recording music, and yeah, this past few years has been kind of a cool transition process. Some of us have become dads and other various life events. So the music has always been something that we've tried to keep in a position where we are approaching it seriously, to where we feel like we're able to give enough of ourselves into whatever we decide to do. But where that might mean that there's less quantity, we try to keep the quality up, and keep music as something that's not in opposition to the rest of our lives.
Besides earlier bedtimes, what's been the difference being dad rockers in Half Loves versus your younger days?
Yeah, I mean, less traveling for sure. I mean, and part of that too, it's a big part of it is just maybe the lifestyle changes and kind of way that our own lives, look differently than 5, 10 years ago. But I feel like this is maybe its own conversation, but the actual musical landscape has changed quite a bit too. I mean, over COVID, there's a lot of independent music venues, especially, that went under. Places like the Mill here in Iowa City, and various other spots all over the state, country. So the touring landscape looks different. And similarly, like the online landscape of how people market their music, how the online marketing influences the real world kind of, ticket sales or whatever other opportunities that maybe labels and management. And you see all these kinds of things where people go viral for this or that, and it's kind of like this quick window of time where maybe there's a chance there. And so I think the musical landscape's changed probably just as much as our own lives have changed.
I think most musicians, they have like a billion different voice memo recordings, and so at this point, there's just less time that I have to do music. And that was very hard for a long time. It's been a multi-year, like Jeff was saying, not feeling antagonism or conflict between music and the rest of life, but finding cohesion amongst it all. And so it definitely went through a couple rounds of ego death to, be where I'm at, where I'm really content and okay with everything, and just trusting that, what when we come together on Tuesday and the seeds that we planted that we're in this germinating stage. I'm not able to, make as many seeds anymore, to plant as many seeds musically. But I think what's great about that now is, picking up things and germinating them and see them, come to fruit. The more I think about it, it's like I probably wasn't doing music as like it's not so much different. There's just you have less time to just slag off now. I mean, I feel like from when I wake up to when I go to sleep, there's just like I'm always on with something I have to do. There's just less of that free time to just kind of free explore. So I think at this point, yeah, like I was just saying, it's just, coming to our Tuesday or Wednesday rehearsal and having what we've been working on and just keep pushing through. I mean, there's still new ideas coming, but yeah, there's just a lot less time to just kind of be at home and creating as much. But I'm trusting, right now we're, Jeff and Zach and I are both in this phase, but we're in the, infant toddler stage. And so eventually life will come, time will come back, and I'm trusting that at that point, I can reintroduce more creative discipline and practice in my life. So
Anything you're willing to talk about new music, I think people would be excited to hear.
yeah.
You've been working on new stuff. It's been 2019, 7 years since your last full-length album. A lot of singles since then, but
Yeah, well, first of all, if people do want to hear some new songs, and if they are around the Iowa City area, after we play through all of our debut album, we are going to play some brand new unreleased music to finish off the night. So that's the most inside scoop you can get if you're not inside our band, if you guys want to come to the show.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what to talk about with the new music. We're super proud of it, and we think it's honestly like some of our best recorded work. It again spans that sort of edge of, poppy and fun, but like gritty and dark too. And yeah, they're cool tunes, so dig them. Don't know how much else I can say about them that's really coming to mind, but yeah, they're cool.
Halfloves will be performing at Gabe's in Iowa City on March 6th, 2 days after the 10-year anniversary of their self-titled debut album. Trevor, Polk, Jeff Roalson, thank you very much for joining me on Studio One.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lucius. Thanks, IPR.
Happy 10-year birthday.